Well, speaking about passing the baton, you are currently writing Conan the Barbarian,
Yeah,
and many other Conan titles for Titan Comics. Me and Bud were talking, and you even mentioned that Mark wasn't into Conan.
right.
Before we came started recording, some people that's just isn't their Conan isn't their thing.
Right.
I was showing Bud some old Conan comic books I had by Jim Owsley, Christopher Priest, and like some people just really dig Conan. And I am reading your book. You did the Conan Red Sonia, you got the Scourge, and current Conan Barbarian. And to me, Conan is this character fighting these ancient creatures. Well, not even ancient creatures, but ancient creature aspects of like Dumbala and Set
Right.
and Sauron. They come up, but it's really the other, like the princes and the scavengers that are really the bad guys. And it's just
Yeah, the majority of opponents in the Hyborian Age are human, you know what I
yeah,
mean? Like, they're wizards and corrupted people. There's monsters, but it's not high fantasy, and it's not kinda mythological fantasy or Arthurian fantasy. It's very there's no dragons or stuff like that. It's not about the monsters as much as it's about kinda these movements of men and these mysterious dark places and secrets.
you know what I really dig about your Conan series. Specifically Conan the Barbarian. It has that old feel. To me, it has that old feel because obviously I'm a D&D player. If you're ever short on a game, email me and let me know. I'm there, buddy. But
Thanks, man.
um, and like it has this classic feel, and you know, it almost to me. I was talking to Bud earlier too that I kind of want it to be like black and white. Like Diego Rodriguez is your colorist on Conan, and
Yeah.
Diego, like, you're doing a wonderful job on colors. The black and white feel, like you have the black and white feel in the book without it being black and white.
Yeah, we it's very much obviously a labor of love, and the classic Conan comics have inspired so many artists over the years. And so pretty much every artist that we've got on the Titan, Heroic Signature series, they all grew up on this stuff and they are obsessed with that look and feel. And for me, when we were looking at what we needed to do to relaunch the series over at Titan, and the way I looked at it was in the 70s, Marvel was kind of on their back feet financially. And the three books that kept them alive were Star Wars, Spider Man, and Conan. And the majority of those readers didn't die. They're still around, but they're not buying a Conan the Barbarian comic every month. And to me, I'm like, but why? Like, why did they buy it in the 70s? They bought it in the 80s. And then by the 90s, they started to drift away. Some of them came back for the Dark Horse series in the early 2000s, but then they've drifted away again. And some of them bought the new Marvel run, but not half as many. And so to me, it was like, okay, we need to get back to the core of this thing. And for me, it was going even further back than the comics to go back to the pulp roots of Robert E. Howard. Like Conan the Barbarian is older than Superman by 6 years. In the original Weird Tales prose stories from the 1930s, the character has been in publishing for over 90 years and in various capacities, over 50 years in comics. Why? Why that character? There are certain iconic characters like your Sherlock Holmes or things like that that stick around, but there are dozens and dozens of other pulp characters and genre characters that fall away. But Conan's one of the ones that's been relatively continuous. And so to me, it was like, okay, let's get back to the core of that thing and understand why it was so popular then and why those comics were such a lightning rod. And they felt like particularly Savage Sword of Conan, the black and white magazine, felt like forbidden fruit as well because they didn't have to follow the Comics Code Authority. So I said, look, those 10 and 12-year-olds are now 50 and 60-year-olds. We can do a mature reader's book and we can have the kind of forbidden fruit now that we never would have been able to do back in the 70s or the 80s, but we can still exemplify the style and the feel of those, books while trying to create a more holistic, connected narrative that an audience and a modern readership would not have you would not have done in the 70s. You know what I mean? Like the need for one-offs and two-parters and things like that, as opposed to long stretches of continuity. And so I'm sort of like, how can we take the best of modern kind of comic storytelling and the best of the old school kind of Bronze Age and bring them together to make this book that if you grew up in the 70s, you're like, yeah, that's my Conan. But if you've never read it before and you've only seen the movie or played the video games, you're like, that's also Conan. And that makes sense. And I can totally follow this thing. And that was sort of the impossible tightrope act that I proposed. And so far, we've been able to pull it off. The other thing I was really kind of adamant about was that we needed to do brand new stories. There have been, depending on how you measure it, there's 21, 22 original Robert E. Howard stories, and then there's a bunch of other pastiche and things like that. But they're famous and they're classics for a reason. But if you just readapt those stories over and over and over again, you're never going to be able to surprise people. And I love The Tower of the Elephant, and I love Red Nails, and I love, all these amazing original stories from Robert E. Howard. But I want you to feel like you felt when you read that for the first time. I want you to be excited and not
Feel it,
know
man.
what's coming next. Exactly,
Yeah,
right?
I feel it.
And that's the thing for me was we have to aspire to make the next Tower of the Elephant. And that is a very egotistical thing to say, but if we, shoot our shot as close as we can, at least we're attempting something. At least we're taking those big swings and surprising readers and trying to bring them on this, wild, amazing ride. And Conan is, like most iconic characters, very simple in concept, but goes deeper the more you dig into it. You don't need to know all the geography of the Hyborian Age and the political strife and the kingdoms clashing and all that stuff. That's my job. You don't need to know how old Conan is in a particular story, just where he is and what's at stake and what's going on. But the longer you read and the more you read, the more you start to see the interweaving of how these things all fit together. We're jumping around the timeline like the original Weird Tales stories did, so that the way I explain it is it's not continuity in terms of history. It's like dramatic continuity. Like you'll always know the information you need when you need it. And so we can go backwards to Conan when he's a youth and a thief, or forward to Conan the Reaver, or Conan the Mercenary, or Conan the General, or Conan the King. And you will always get this through line in terms of what we're doing narratively and why. And that's kind of more important to me than just saying like every day in the life of Conan in order from one to, infinity or whatever. And so that's been a really fun challenge. It's been a really cool thing to do. And the readers responding and the good word of mouth, bringing back that old school fan base. The number of people that I'm meeting at conventions who are coming to me and they say, I haven't collected the book in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, more than 20 years. And now they're in the comic shop every single month. Retailers telling me that, Conan back issues used to be just like birdcage filler, and now they're selling runs and they're turning books, and old issues of Savage Sword are selling because these guys come and buy their new Conan and then they start digging through the boxes because they're now, that nostalgia's really hit them and they want to get that stuff. This book right here, I finally got
There
my
it
own
is.
Conan #1. I
There it
bought
is.
this at MegaCon back in February. I was at a retail. I wanted to buy one. I didn't want a CGC because it's always extremes. It's like a CGC 9.0 for thousands of dollars, or it's like $50 and it looks like it's been run over by a truck. And I was like, I just want something like looks good and it's like raw. And I saw one at a retailer's booth and we were chatting, and I was like, "Oh, I'm really interested in that." I think it was like $500 or something, and we were talking back and forth. And he goes, "Man, you would have got this for like half this price a couple years ago, but Conan's hot shit again." And I was like, "Oh yeah?" And then he glanced down at my badge and he goes, "And it's all your fault." And I was like, "Yay!" Like that's the best. That's
Yeah,
the best
awesome.
compliment. Like that we've been able to remind people why this character is cool, and why this world is so compelling and how easy it is to jump into, that all you need to know is the Hyborian Age is like a mythical fictional history, prehistory of our world, full of mystery and magic, and wherever Conan goes, something badass and amazing is going to happen. Go pick it
Yeah.
up, read it,
You,
you're going to have a great time.
Did he give you a
yeah.
break
That
on the price?
He did actually. I signed a bunch of books for his customers, and then he gave me a break on the price. So
Yeah.
There you go.
But that continuity thing, 'cause I am reading it, and it sort of, because you mentioned it, it almost feels like how the Cartoon Network did Clone Wars with Star Wars. because
Right.
it wasn't linear, but like if there was something important, you would know it in the story. And
You got it.
like
You got
exactly, you
it.
don't like you can like you're going into the Conquering Crown, right? And
Right.
you
So
know,
now we're showing you how Conan became the king of Aquilonia.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think sure you can pick up on like anything you miss. Like it comes up, I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. Jim, it's a great read.
Thank you. Thank you. And it's such a fun challenge for me because I love this world and I love the character and I really want to bring I think one of the things I was intimidated about and I struggled with for a time was if you get a chance to read the original Robert E. Howard prose stories, his turn of a phrase and his lyricism in his narration is so good. Like it makes it elevates the storytelling to such a degree that I can't properly if you compare it to other pulp stories and other, you know, fantasy stories and other stuff that was coming out, there's a reason why, Clark Ashton Smith and H.P. Lovecraft and Robert E. Howard are the three authors who sort of stand as a pantheon in weird tales. The other stuff is like quick, pulpy, pretty forgettable entertainment for the most part. But then you read the Howard stuff and there's this gravitas and this poetry to the way he describes violence or the minds of these people or these mythical kind of things that are happening, these mysteries unleashed from the darkness that Conan is discovering. And to me it was like, okay, that is so intrinsic to what makes Conan comics read the way that they do. That Roy Thomas and Kurt Busiek and Tim Truman and the best writers who have ever had their hand, Jim Owsley, who have had their hand on Conan, they understood that voice. And when they hit it really strong, it's not corny, it's amazing. It brings a gravity and a depth and an atmosphere and a texture to the page that you don't get otherwise. You can't just have sound effects, swords clanking and people screaming, and that's Conan. There's got to be something more lyrical underneath it. There's got to be a drama and an intensity to that narrative description. And when I first started writing Conan, I think I was so obsessed with just making sure the events made sense. And then it was, man, I'm sort of intimidated by that voice, by that gravitas and that lyricism. But the more I've done it, the more I become comfortable with it, the more excited I am by it. And when it works, man, it's like electricity pouring out of your fingertips into the keyboard. Like it sounds right. And then the readers know it. And I know it when it finally clicks in a particular passage. And the best compliment I get on Conan right now is people say, man, you were born to write this book. And I go, my drafts will probably tell you otherwise, but thank you for the compliment. Like, because that it sounds right to you, that it fits like a glove once it's on the page is all that matters. Whatever whirlwind of fury it is to get to that point, is doesn't matter as long as the final production version is strong. Then I've done the job. And the more I do it, the easier it gets in theory, but it's always a cool challenge to bring that to the page. And the readers are wicked passionate and they're wickedly opinionated and they will tell you the minute they don't like something. And I used to be afraid of that, and I'm not anymore. Not because I don't think I'm going to make mistakes, but because it's proof that they're passionate about the thing that you're working on. The reality is the reason why fans freak out is because earlier they wouldn't care about these characters at all if there hadn't been the stories and the artwork that had not grabbed them many, many years ago. And so we are standing on the shoulders of those giants and we have to try and do right by these legacies. And that doesn't mean that we don't take risks, but it means that we're still thoughtful and careful about what we do and why, you know, and that we're looking to, we're custodians of these properties for the time that we get to work on them. And I hope that when people look back at stuff that I've done in the Marvel universe, at stuff that I've done with Dungeons and Dragons, at stuff that I've done with Conan the Barbarian, that they feel like that is a cool, point in time. That is a milestone of a run that did cool things and told the kinds of stories that, excited and entertained and engaged people. Um, that's the goal. And right now, to be in the midst of this really long run, I'm signed on for 50 issues of Conan the Barbarian, which in the modern, comic
It doesn't happen.
landscape
Yeah.
is rare as all get out, and does not normally happen. I know what I'm going to be doing for the next 2 years in terms of monthly output, and that is an amazing place to be. And it gives me a runway that I can tee up really cool stories and foreshadow things and then pay them off. And sort of like I was joking about, if you like No Surrender pacing, that's my fault. If you like this Conan the Barbarian run and we land that plane, like that's mine, hopefully we don't crash it, but everything, this is the big master plan that I kind of put together, and they have given me all the things I wanted. And so I more than I wanted in terms of like, the type of support that they've shown me and the enthusiasm that I get from editorial and Titan, and everyone on the crew is phenomenal. And it's like, if we land this thing, I'll take my flowers. But like it's exciting and intimidating to know that we're going to get the chance to take it all the way, no matter what. And it's a very special kind of a time for me in terms of, as a writer.
Would you be looking forward to doing something else after within the next 2 years, or would you continue on Conan if if that's an option?
Well, this big mythic arc that we're building, the way we've structured it out is, every fall we've got a mini series that's sort of like a tent post for big ideas and big stuff that we're doing. So last year we did Battle of the Blackstone. Right now we're in the midst of Scourge of the Serpent. We've got 2 more kind of events coming in 2 more years as I take it through to 2027. And those are they're a big thing I want to say about sword and sorcery, about Conan, and about the Hyborian Age. So that will come to an end at the end of 2027, assuming everything ships on time. But we are right. So far, so good. And so that feels like a really cool block, whether or not I stay on after that, that's hard to say, but I know it will be different after that, that will be other kinds of stories, or probably not the same kind of ludicrous, overarching thing. And that's a hard kind of question to answer. You sort of like, do you want more Marvel movies after Endgame? Sure you do, like,
Yeah.
but is everyone going to exit after Endgame?
Yeah.
Possibly, like on that other hand. So it's a tough spot to sort of, if I get the benefit of being asked to do more past that, that's a good problem to have. And that's a 2026, 2027 problem for Jim, not a
That's a
not
future Jim
heading into
problem.
Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah, future Jim will deal with such, difficulties. But if this is the run I've got, I'm certainly not displeased in the slightest, and I'm very, very thrilled to get the chance to tell this big story and to do these big swings. And like I said, hopefully we land it. I had a really great dinner with Ron Mars last month, where we were talking about, he joked, but it wasn't really a joke. He's like, I'm still doing conventions on Silver Surfer and Green Lantern.
Mhm.
He's like, land this thing and you'll have this in your back pocket for all time. And I was like, cool, man, I'll be sure to do that. Like, you hope that you're able to do it. But yeah, it's like I said, a cool time and an exciting time to be able to be in the middle of a big run, and to have people reading and supporting it, and sharing it with others, and telling people, man, if you're not reading Conan, if you've never read Conan, this is the perfect place to jump in. If you always loved Conan, you are missing out, if you're not on board. And that is a very cool thing to see. When I go to conventions, that is the majority of the stuff that people are bringing to me. That's what they want to talk about. That's what they're excited about. And it's a ton of fun. It's the kind of long run I have always wanted to do in comics. And my longest runs before this have always been my creator-owned books. I did 34 issues of Skull Kickers. I did 30 issues of Wayward. Most of my Marvel stuff has been sort of shorter, kind of here and there. And I've always wanted to be able to hunker down on something and just sort of be like, okay, let me cook. Like, let me show you what I can do. And this is finally kind of, I think, proving like I've got big ideas and I'm ready to execute on them. let's play. And so to answer your question, are there other characters? Are there other things? Yeah, I would love to do. Even now while I'm doing Conan, I'm still doing other writing. Like, it is the lion's share of my output, but I've got other stuff I'm working on. I've got a new creator-owned series that I'm starting to get some good momentum on, and we're going to announce next year and things like that. But obviously, like, the Hyborian Age takes a big fat chunk of my brain space right now because I'm doing the monthly book, a 4-issue event miniseries every year, plus stories for Savage Sword, plus I'm doing some media consulting for them as well. So it's a whole lot of Conan. It's good.
And it's good. It is
It's a
good.
lot.
Yeah.